For centuries, legends have been handed down through generations of the things that move in the darkness of the wilds. These legends were warnings of large creatures who lived just beyond the shadows, waiting for the unwary. Today, there are those brave few who are willing to look past the shadows and are determined to unmask these legends. The Bigfoot of Europe, the Woody Wassa, Wildman, or Woodwose may be new to some, but if you look into history, it's far from new. It's a little-known fact that there have been reports of Bigfoot-type creatures all over Europe for centuries, and this documentary film will take you to Ireland, where the Irish Bigfoot Research Organization go in search of these elusive creatures. Are you ready for the truth?
You're listening to Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio. For centuries, eyewitnesses have reported seeing giant creatures in the woods of North America and beyond. These forest giants have been known by many names, including Sasquatch, Oma, Yowie, Yeti, and their most commonly used name, Bigfoot. Join us as eyewitnesses share the details of their encounters with these forest giants on the show. And now your host, Vic Cundiff.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter of your own and would like to be a guest on the show, please go to BigfootEyewitness.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you listened to last week's show, you heard Chris Dawson and Jim Bradley with the Irish Bigfoot Research Organization talk about several Bigfoot-related experiences they've had, as well as ones eyewitnesses have shared with them from around the world. There were several things we didn't have time to talk about last week because we ran out of time, but luckily they've agreed to come back this week so we can do that. Chris and Jim, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Hi Vic, thanks for having us back. It's always a pleasure. This week we're going to concentrate on fieldwork of the Irish Bigfoot Research Organisation, followed up by we have some more personal stories and sightings that happened to ourselves while filming and during the process of recording for the documentary. Plus we are going to give you an exclusive rundown on the actual documentary itself on Walking with the Wild Man. Here with me, beside me here is Chris, and Chris is ready to rock and roll, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
For this week's show. So we'll get started. Chris, can you tell us about last winter?
Well, just below Lough Neagh, there was quite an area of mixed silver birch forest and peat bogs. It's renowned within the research community here for having a lot of activity. Before last year, I had been there a few times during the day, etc., but had never really mustered up the courage to go out there at night. And last December, I decided to head out, and wasn't long out of the car, and I did almost thought I heard a whistle, and of course I brushed it aside and paid no attention of it and continued my walk into the woods. Now, a live feed obviously was planned at this stage for our Bigfoot group, which we mentioned last week, if any of you guys listened to last week's show. But got up into the woods a little bit more, and I probably walked about 1.5 miles up the trail. And that's when things sort of kicked off. I heard a couple of knocks, one off to my left in the distance, maybe 500 metres away, and a second one off to my right, probably the same distance roughly. It was sort of hard to judge, to be exact, but roughly 500 metres off on either side. So one knock was first, and the second knock came directly after that in reply to the first knock. And again, if any of you listened to the show last week, we talked about knocks and my personal theory on those. But that was another incident that sort of confirmed that for me. But that was okay. At this stage, we were live. We were live in the Bigfoot group on Facebook, and we decided to head down the trail. And of course, you get the people who's watching to give you a little bit of encouragement, and they would egg you on to proceed. So I proceeded down the trail, and we headed sort of maybe 300 meters from the road. And I thought at first I caught eye shine on my left, and I was sort of trying to figure out while I was chatting to people on the live feed, I didn't want to say too much to them, and just at that point, until I had it confirmed in my own mind and with my own eyes, I wanted to make sure that there was no farm buildings or anything off in that direction that would maybe make up for the eye shine. But of course there wasn't, and I popped up Google Earth on my phone and had a quick check of the area where I was, Google Maps rather, hit my direction and see where I was, and there was nothing around that area at all. So I mentioned it then to the viewers, and I says, I think we might have eye shine on my left. And we walked on down a little bit. We got to about maybe 50 to 100 metres away from a little country road, and we stopped, and the eye shine, it was following me. I didn't hear any movement, but whatever it was following me. And got down to about 50 to 100 metres roughly from the road. I'm not great with distance. And there was actually 2 pairs of eyes at this stage. So there was one, at least maybe 7 to 8 feet tall, and there was one maybe at 4 or 5 feet tall. Now, whether this was an adult and a juvenile, or simply an adult standing up and an adult sitting down, or hunkered down, I don't know, and I'll probably never know. But my guess on the matter was that this was a mum and a juvenile, because no sooner than we had seen the eye shine in front of us, which was captured on video, there was a knock immediately behind me. And I mean 20, 30 meters behind me. So it was really, really, really close. And mentioned this, of course, everyone heard the knock clearly on the video on that night. And just after the knock, there was a car coming up the road. So I heard the distance, car coming up the road, seen the lights coming, and the car went past us pretty quickly. And just literally as soon as that car was coming up the road, I'm not sure whether other researchers have experienced a similar thing to this, but I have found that they do tend to use noise like trains on railroads, cars and trucks or whatever passing by. Whatever the case is, they would use those noises to cover their tracks. So they would make their move when something like that happens. And that was my take on the night. So the knock was behind me while these 2 were in front of me, and a car came up the road pretty quick, probably doing 40, 50 miles per hour, flew past us. Just after that car passed, I seen roughly about an 8 foot to 9 foot tall black mass. I couldn't make out any detail, but I can make out the mass going past where the car went past on the road. But I seen the pair of eyes, so I seen the eyes glow, and it actually ran was running behind this car, and it was just over in a flash. I was so quick, But my guess on it that night, and everybody else's guess on it that night, was that it was coming round to meet these other two. Now, that's why I said earlier that I think it was a mum and a juvenile who were looking at me, because, she was 7 feet tall. The kid was 5, maybe, feet tall. And this one was 8 to 9 feet tall. He was on the road, which I would guess was Dad. So that was quite an interesting experience, Jim.
Yeah, there's another story that I know you have for us that happened in April this year.
In exactly the same area. Yeah. It was one of those really wet days where the rain just doesn't stop all day. Now, not torrential rain, we have flooding and all these sort of things, but one of those just old wet, damp days where everybody else puts their feet up and watches
typical Irish day.
Yeah. Everybody else would put their feet up and watch the television, or watch America's Got Talent or whatever. And of course, Chris, he was out in the woods. But my experience there again is that sort of weather is good for us, because it means that you're not going to get any people hindering your research, So I went out and out to exactly the same area, just a little bit further away, maybe about 3 miles from that last location. But I decided to bring the drone with me. And I got the drone and I flew it about periodic intervals. I would stop on the trail and let it up and set it over the forest, move on and do the same again and so on. And I'd done this for about 5 kilometres. So I took about a 5 kilometre route. And I kept doing this, So I had heard some of the guys, my friends in the States, mentioning things like this in the past, that they've tried these things, and that it does seem to attract a little bit of attention. Sure enough, it did. Eventually, after about 4 kilometres, I was basically only about a kilometre away back from the car. So I'd done pretty much a loop, and about a kilometre from the car, roughly, that's where the stuff started to happen. I just landed the drone again, of course, and looked over till it was quite a bit away. It was at least 300 to 400 metres away, across the bogland, just on the edge of the forest. And I thought what I seen 2 heads popping up and down behind a hedge. Now, I said, well, first of all, I had to gather my thoughts. Is this just a burst blowing, or what is it? Right? But clearly it wasn't. Right? Yeah. Because, even if it is a little bit windy, the bushes would sort of blow in tandem, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So I thought that. And sure enough, they were coming up a little bit higher and a little bit lower and so on. And that was okay. But I noticed to the right, maybe about 20 to 30 yards from these two popping up and down behind the hedge, this other guy standing out. And he just had your typical Sasquatch pose.
How far was he?
Same distance, 300 metres, but he was at 20, 30 yards away from from the other two, but the same distance from me. But he stood out. You could clearly see the legs, the arms, everything. Couldn't see, obviously facial detail. There was nothing like that because it was too far away. But you could see the outline, the detail, the height. The height was at least 8 feet tall. Yeah. It might even have been the same guy as last winter. I don't know, but it certainly was quite clear. But I says, yeah, of course, right, okay. And I didn't really accept it, to be honest. I didn't ever really accept it, what I had seen, to be honest, because I always think, maybe it's this or that, or it's a bush, or it's a hedge, or whatever. But that was okay, so I moved on, and there was a little bit of bog forest there, which is water willow trees. So it was quite a bit of a climb to get through those. But whenever I did get through those, I got back out onto another trail, and I happened to look behind me towards where we were, and there was a black mass up in one of the trees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was too big to be a bird's nest or anything like that. Certainly, as we mentioned last week, and I'm sure many of the listeners know, there's no bears in Ireland or nothing like that. So, you know, and we don't have birds of that size to be able to sit in a tree that's that size.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, right, okay, maybe there is something happening here, and walked on, and I said, right, I'll get the camera out, I turned the phone on, I went live on the group, and I showed the guys, I said, listen, look, there's something up this tree. It barely picked it up because we were so far away, obviously with the quality of a mobile phone, and plus the quality of some social media networks. But it was clearly there, and I said, right, guys, I just wanted to show you this. A few people were watching, and I said, I'm going to stop again. I'm going to get the drone, and I'm going to fly the drone over there and see if I can get it on the drone. So, done that. I couldn't see nothing on the screen on the mobile phone because you use the mobile phone to control the drone. So, I couldn't see nothing on that. But when we got the footage back, you can see something in the tree. Once I got it back onto the computer, you can see something. Yeah. But the guys could pick it up on the live feed, but just, I don't know what it was with the connection with the drone, because they use a Wi-Fi connection. You know, it maybe just didn't come through to the phone at the time. But again, that was okay. And then I packed the drone up, and I got the phone out and went back on live on the Bigfoot group again straight after that. And we walked along the trail and chatting, asking people questions and so on. We got about 500 meters down the trail. Again, there was a big set of bushes on my left. Just as we were walking past a slightly lower bush, I seen a black cone head moving down behind the bush.
What distance was it?
10 feet. It was huge. Just the head. There was nothing else I seen. I just caught him. He probably made a little bit of a muck up on his reconnaissance mission, whatever he was intending to do, following me home or whatever he was doing. He made a little bit of a missed time, but I seen his head just going down behind the bush, and the head was at least a foot wide. Yeah, so Jim, after last week's show with Vic, I actually decided to take you out to this location. I know we didn't mention it on last week's show, but I decided to take you out to this location. Yourself and Anthony, one of our other members and researchers, and of course, it didn't take long for you to get some action.
Did not. It was. We arrived there about, I think it was about 9 p.m. It was a perfect night. It was not a cloud in the sky, no lights to be seen anywhere. We were fairly remote where we were. The moon was behind us. I think it was just coming up to a full moon. It was very low in the sky, and it was behind us. So it was lighting up the hillside in front of us. There was a walkway in. We were coming in on a walkway, and I was about 20 to 25 yards behind Chris and Anthony. So we were only 5 minutes in, and we stopped on the path, and Chris decided to do a call. So Chris called out and immediately started to have a little conversation with Anthony. And from where my location was, 25 yards behind, it sounded like a car crashing through the forest for about 3 or 4 seconds. There was just snapping and branches crashing and banging. So it gave me a bit of a start. And I knew where the area where it came from. I could pinpoint it. I shined a torch over in that direction. I couldn't see anything. But we did walk on, and we accessed that location. It was tough, tight, heavy brush going into it. We went in about 100 yards, 150 yards into it. Very remote. It was tight going, climbing under stuff and over stuff. But we eventually got about 150 yards in, and we stopped. And we decided to do the unthinkable and switch off all our torches for 60 seconds. You could not see your hand in front of your face. It was absolute pitch black. And for anyone that's been in Ireland before or doesn't know Ireland, we don't have any frogs, we don't have any crickets. So it's not a sound. You can hear a pin drop at 150 yards. So
we do have frogs.
We do have frogs, but they don't call it as not like you see in the States. Yeah, we do have frogs, all right, but it was perfectly quiet, not a sound. We did hear noise. I think it was like footsteps.
Yeah.
To our left. It started on our left-hand side. So, of course, we turned on the torch immediately to have a look. We couldn't see anything. We turned them off again, and another, say, 60 seconds passed, and the footsteps were 100 yards in front of us this time. We did the same again. Panic stations, shined the torch on, see what was. We couldn't see anything. We switched them off again, and the same again, but it was on our right this time. So at that stage, we decided, okay, we're going to back out of here. So we got out of there fairly sharp, back onto the main trail, and we carried on. We went another twisty, windy, bendy trackway around, and we could hear there was some noises, some more noises coming from.
Of course, Jim, if anybody listened to the show last week, I told it about the live feed that we had in Cryptovania the previous day to last week's show with Vic, and that I had heard some sniffing in that area.
So, yeah, we were on, there was a live feed on Cryptovania TV on one of the social media networks, and Chris got all the way around, nearly back to his car. Say, it was only how far were you from the car when?
If even 300 metres, not even.
Yeah, he was very close to the car and finishing up, and he was telling the people on screen, thank you very much for coming along and watching the show and asking questions and that. And when he said that he heard this very, very powerful and deep sniffing sound to your right-hand side, was it, as you were walking?
To my left.
To your left. To your left-hand side as he was heading back to the car. And
this is where you guys were at this stage?
So this was the following night after being on your show, Vic. We went out exactly 24 hours later, and we came to the same area, and we heard the same sniffing again. So we proceeded to have a look in the location. There was a big field behind, open field. There was no horses, no cattle, nothing that we could see that could cause this, or so it was a mystery. It was a mystery at that time. So we got back to the car and we proceeded home. So, but that was a good night for investigation. Chris, what about last week in North Armagh?
Yeah, well, it was one of those evenings where you're not planning to go out at all, and I thought last Monday out with yourselves was last week's maximum, but I got out on Wednesday evening and I had my big torch with me, and I was walking along and noticed that the battery power was fading a little bit. Decided to change my batteries, so I said I gotta get these batteries out. It was almost getting, it was dusk, it was getting dark soon, so had to change them over. So I stopped at a big tree and opened the back. It's quite a big torch, so I opened the back end of it and took out the batteries and set them up on a tree log and put the new batteries in. And just as I had set these batteries up on the tree log, I heard a really, really loud growl. So I can't even do it, to be honest, but it was really loud and deep. And the first thing that came into my head, if you watched last week's show, I talked briefly about seeing a big cat back in July, and that's obviously the first thing came into my head. So I said to myself, "Oh my goodness, this is a big cat. This big cat's in here, And then I thought to myself, "Oh, maybe hold on a minute. No, it doesn't sound like a cat. And plus, a cat would be on you. It would sneak up on you. It wouldn't do that sort of thing." So then I thought to myself, okay, it's going to be a wild boar. It's a wild hog to use guys in the States. And then I said to myself, well, no, that doesn't sound like a pig. So there was no other on it. I thought, is it a cow or all those things all running through your head, you know. So I evaluated all that up, and then I said to myself, right, okay, so it's none of those things, I don't think, right? So the growling sort of went on for about a minute. So it on and off, it growled once, and then it growled a little bit longer, and so on for about a minute. Whether if it was a Bigfoot, if it maybe wasn't happy about me setting batteries on a tree trunk, I don't know what the situation was on their side, but certainly I lifted up the batteries, put them in my pocket, and off I went, just in case I was offending anyone. But anyway, headed round and started up a live feed as per usual, and Eileen Buxton there from England came on screen with me. We were chatting about what had just happened, etc., etc., and we got round to a second trail. And I always tend to carry my camera because I'm right-handed. I always carry the camera in my right hand. So, you know, we were sort of walking sideways at this point because I was filming on the forest, and I was, you know, trying to keep the camera on the forest, obviously. Came up to this second trail, and just as I eased my head around that trail, I could see actually this trail here, it was just almost dusk, as I said, and you could see almost the entire length of that trail, you know, so you could see at least 500 meters down that trail, and there was something grey moved at the bottom end of it. Something similar to what you talked about last week in the same area, Jim.
Yeah.
It was grey and big and moved across the trail. Now, of course, this all happened really quickly. And just as I was putting my head round the corner onto the trail, I seen that. And then, of course, when the camera comes around after that, it's gone. But that was just last Wednesday. But the grey mass that I seen, it didn't faze me, to be honest, right? Because, you know, because it was so far away for a start, you couldn't make out anything. There was trees obscuring it, all these sorts of things. So you can make out no detail whatsoever other than a grey black mass.
Same as what I seen just about. Yeah.
There's nothing you could discern from that. But the growling and the stuff it got me intrigued. So I was really busy with my own work last week, so I didn't get a chance to get online and hunt things up and all these things until Sunday, until yesterday. So my dad is actually a wildlife specialist, basically. He works for quite a few agencies within Ireland, looking after birds of prey and all these sort of things. He is well travelled. He's a mountaineer. All those sort, you name it, he is it. With all those sort of things, you know. He knows all the animals of Ireland. He knows all the sounds, etc. He can even tell you every single individual bird, just from one or two cheeps. He can tell you exactly what that bird was. He's that well, you know, tuned in on this sort of stuff. So he started playing me all these animal sounds. Well, was it this you heard, Chris? No. Was it this? No. Was it this? No. And so on. And he said, my mum was sitting there too, actually, and he says, okay, to my mum, put up a Bigfoot growl. And I'm searching YouTube and got one up. I think it was by one of the guys. I'm not going to mention any names, don't want to get anybody in trouble, but one of the quite popular researchers in the States had recorded this, and there was quite a bit going on in this particular video. There was whoops going on, growling going on, a bit of chatter in the recording as well. But it done a few groans and growls, and that was exactly what I heard. Exactly what I heard. It just wasn't whooping or talking. It was just growling and groaning, you know, grumping about sort of thing. But it sort of gave me the feeling of I just wasn't happy with what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know? But, of course, Jim, after we're finished with Vic tonight, I'm going to bring you out to that same location.
Yeah, we're going again to see, it seems to be quite active, so we're going to give it another bash tonight, see what happens.
Yeah, so hopefully maybe you and Anthony
Yep.
We'll be able to.
We'll be the base.
Yeah, bring some batteries with you and set them on a tree trunk. See what happens. Yeah. So, Jim, one of the things that intrigued yourself and Ben one night, we had just finished filming the recreation scenes for the documentary Walking with the Wild Man, and there was actually three of us on this occasion. There was myself, you, and Ben.
Yeah.
Do you want to fill us in on?
Yeah,
on
we
what
just
happened
finished
there?
up. We were in a very, very remote area. Again, it was a starry night, beautiful night, up in the mountains. We were, you could see for a long distance. We were on this desolate road that went on for a long distance. It was one of these roads with the grass sort of growing in the middle of it, so it was fairly remote. And we just finished up. So what we did find that we were packing the stuff away, and Ben actually says, "Did you hear that?" I didn't hear it at first, but there was something to our left in the tree line. And of course, we all still had our torches. We shined them in. Nothing was at that time was seen or heard. We switched them off again, and we're packing the stuff in the car again. And the noise came up again, and this time we all heard it. So we stopped what we were doing, went to the side of the road by shining our torches in or flashlights in, and we still couldn't see anything. So we switched them off and let us shout in, "Hello!" Wherever was there stopped immediately. There wasn't a sound to be heard. We sort of, it would be 40 yards, maybe, if that,
Yeah.
in front of us, yeah.
This was just August 1st.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not too long ago. So it seemed to be pacing up and down, left and right. And when you'd call, it would stop. When you turn on the torch, it would stop. So we didn't know what it was. So we carried on and packed on, and it got closer until it was nearly to when we switched off the flashlights. We waited there for about 60 seconds, and it was getting to it in about 15, 20 feet of us. So at that stage, we said, "Okay, let's get out of here." That was it.
I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
Yeah, that was it. We decided to, that's it. Throw everything. Don't worry about packing the stuff. Just throw it in and get out of here. So, that was one that we weren't looking for. We weren't ready for, and we weren't prepared for. It just happened on this place where we were doing a little bit of filming. So the lights and the car noise must have intrigued something that was in the area and came along to view. So we had a witness watching us from
Yeah.
close range. We still to this day we can't say what it was. We don't know it was a cat, a large cat, or a Bigfoot. We don't know. We're not sure.
But of course, that Jim was filming the new documentary Walking with the Wild Man, and we did promise Vic some exclusive information on that, and that was one of the sort of the latest nights that we were out on the start of August, just filming the recreations. So, but obviously, early preps for the documentary started away back in early 2018, and I had mentioned to a few people about maybe being interested in putting a documentary together. Again, about the main objective is for to hopefully create awareness and get more people to come forward. But we spoke about that last week. We'll not delve into that too much. But certainly early preps, you were pretty much initially on the scene right away, Jim.
Yeah, we had everything sort of in our head. We had our stories that we wanted the big stories that we wanted to recreate. And unfortunately, we didn't have any eyewitness come forward personally to ourselves, but we had stories to go from reports. So that's where we initially started from.
Yeah, and then of course initial filming, post-production started pre-production rather, started about October, November last year, and then we were pretty much into initial filming, which began in December, just before Christmas. And that was your first outing out on a film shoot. So
Yeah, we weren't great at the start, but we fairly quickly got into the rhythm.
Yeah.
And if we have another, if there's a DVD on bloopers, we'd fill it up, you know.
Yeah.
But initially it's in County Louth. We have You'll See Me in the documentary and in the trailer. The trailer is available on YouTube. If you just simply type in "Walking with the Wild Man," yeah, the trailer is available there for anybody to view. You'll see me in that trailer in the documentary carrying a firearm. I carry a high-powered rifle. The reason being is County Louth is notorious for large cat or big cat sightings in the area. And in fact, last year there was 26 reports given to police about large cat sightings in Northern Ireland. Now, that was alone, just in Northern Ireland alone. So we're not counting the ones that people didn't report. They're just the ones that were reported. So it was just for our own safety. That was people. I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
That was just in the north of Ireland. That's not including the Republic of Ireland.
That's not. Yeah. The reason being for that is during the 1970s, wealthy people were getting in these exotic cats from all over the world, and it became a bit of a nuisance to the authorities, and they changed the laws and brought in big fees and license fees and stuff like that, and vet fees, and had to be penned in certain areas and stuff like this. So there were big rules, and a lot of money was involved. So the people, a lot of people just let them go.
Yeah.
Just opened the gates and let them out. And lo and behold, we are getting the repercussions of that from the 1970s. They've obviously bred. They're being reported. Sheep are going missing, and there's no other people. There's not stories of people being missing, but that's about it on that one.
Yeah. So the initial day of film, obviously that was the concern, and that's why you had your rifle with you. But that initial day of film and the very first day out on the shoot of the documentary, of course in County Louth, and a lot of stuff that you see in the documentary has remained from that first shoot. But unfortunately, the initial bits that we actually talked about, a sighting and things like that, was actually ended up being completely cut from the documentary, and we had to go reshoot all those things again in June.
That's correct, yeah.
For that initial chat that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously that's one of those things, but, you know, obviously if it batters the documentary, well, fair enough, yeah. But obviously, you know, the first thing we had to decide when doing this documentary is the sightings, obviously. What sightings are we going to cover? Can we get witnesses in? All these things, you know. And of course, we did try to get the witnesses to speak, but they didn't want to speak. So their identities have been kept private. But of course, their sightings, their personal sightings are there. We recreate those to the best of our abilities, and they actually have turned out pretty well. So on the side and with sightings to pick and put in the documentary, and you know, to be able to go and investigate those. It had to be logistical for us as well. So, you know, this sighting here, for example, in a certain area, are we able to get to that area to get out there and go check it out, etc., etc. So all these things had to be taken into the equation. But obviously, the initial sighting that we talked about in the first shoot was a sighting that happened in the 1930s. Well, back in County Louth, and it wasn't too far from Jim. It's only about an hour's drive from Jim, from Dublin, so it wasn't too bad. And of course, as I said, those initial scenes were all ended up cut out, but we did redo them, put them back in, of course, yeah.
So, Chris, the locations for the documentary, the decisions on where to go and the places to see? Decisions
were abounded, and, you know, more or less basically threw into a hat because there was that many good locations that we could have picked. But, you know, you got to draw the line somewhere, even if you like somewhere else and you say, well, we can't go there this time. You know, you just got to draw that line and throw the penny in the hat and go out there. And obviously, we got about. So, I mean, we were right over on the Tyrone-Donegal border, big forests over there. That's actually one of the biggest areas.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
We covered a sighting in the Spurn Mountains there. Mm-hmm. And one strange thing about that one that we did do, and we're not going to spoil it for viewers, but the actual area, the sighting that we covered in the Spurns and Donegal area, the recreation for that was actually shot in the Cooley Mountains. It's a little bit of trivia for the listeners, but it's one of those things, logistical things, because of the actual initial sighting that happened. It required the use of firearms. So the only firearms that we have in possession of anybody in the organisation is Jim's. It's your own personal weapons, Jim, and you're not allowed to use them in this jurisdiction. So we had to film those scenes in the Republic. But it wasn't because we didn't want to go there and do it. It's because of that reason, obviously. So those scenes of which you will see in the documentary were actually filmed in 2 different locations. We're actually standing talking about the actual sighting at the actual sighting locations, but the recreation for that was filmed in a completely different part of Ireland.
Yeah. That was the reason it had to be done for legislation wise and firearms license wise. That's just unfortunate the way it is at the moment. But
but it turned out pretty well.
It actually turned out excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah.
And the Cooley Mountains are more or less identical to the Spurn Mountains.
Yeah, they look identical. There's no difference. There's no difference. It's a pine forest is a pine forest. Is a pine forest, as they say.
That's it.
They all look the same, especially in Ireland when you're here. They look. We did use a lot of drone footage. The scenery that we have in the documentary is breathtaking. I have to say, we did watch. We were doing voiceovers there last week, and we were watching some of the scenes, and it's spectacular. It's something that would take your breath away. Some of the stuff, the scenery is fantastic. So we're really happy the way that turned out. Yeah,
and of course we filmed 4 recreations in total.
Yeah.
For the documentary, so there's 4 sightings obviously that we're covering. We cover a lot of content obviously, but it's actually quite funny on saying what we just said about that. But there's actually only 1 recreation in the whole show that was actually filmed at the exact location.
Yeah.
But logistical reasons, all the rest of the things which you're going to see in this show, all the investigations, all those things are all at those locations where the witness seen those things, etc., witnesses. But for the recreations, it was the logistical of carrying all that equipment, even to have a Bigfoot suit there, all those things had to be filmed in a more visible manner. So actually, there's only 1 recreation filmed at the exact spot of where it happened, and all the others were all filmed in different locations. Apart from the Spurns sighting, which you just mentioned, Jim, being filmed in the Cooley Mountains, the rest of the recreations were filmed in the forests of South Armagh.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah,
and they're covering sightings from County Antrim and County Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so logistics turned out well, and hopefully everybody else will think so too.
Yeah, if it's well received and it does well for us and people come forward and really enjoy it and give us good feedback, there is potential that we can do a Walking with the Wild Man Part 2. But that's for a later date. But we see how this one goes. If it's well received, we have intended to do a Part 2.
Yeah. Well, again, that is feasibility and logistical. Almost logistical methods, but of course, the methods that we actually used in the documentary, Jim, we can talk a little bit about those, can we? I mean, there's different methods that people use to try and entice in a Bigfoot.
Yeah, we tried cooking some bacon, which was very tasty on the day. It was a cold day, and it went down very well. But the smell went through the forest very well. There was another time we tried some call blasting with some music.
Music, yeah.
Yeah, and
that's music blasting. That's not call blasting.
Yeah, music blasting. Yeah.
And then we tried call blasting as well.
Yeah.
So trying and blowing off Bigfoot calls to try and entice them in. And then, of course, like we chatted earlier on with one of my personal experiences, the drone. We did try the drone. We used the drone in different circumstances as well.
Yeah, that seems to be, we've heard that from the States, that drone actually draws their attention, and they tend to be inquisitive and try and investigate, see what it is. So
it must be the flashing lights, or maybe they think it's like a big bug, or
buzzing noise or something.
Yeah.
But
obviously, a lot of methods were tried. We're not going to tell the viewer or the listener rather the outcome of that, but the documentary is absolutely filled with content. We covering sightings we go out and investigate those sightings in all different areas of Ireland, and of course there's still a little bit more left to do, Jim. We're night investigations.
Yeah, we still have 2 or 3 night investigations to do to finish off the documentary. So we're just waiting for it tends to get, as we're in the Northern Hemisphere, we're up fairly high with, if you were to draw a line parallel with Ireland across to the States, on latitude and longitude, we are on the same equivalent as Ontario, Canada. So we're up fairly high. We don't get their weather, thank God, but that's how high we are. So our evenings, when it gets on December and that, or November, December, it gets dark around 4 p.m. So we're looking forward to getting out and doing a good few hours. We're going to have 3 or 4 cameras involved.
Each is going to be a 3 camera shoot. But what we can do is we're actually going to let the people know when those night shoots are taking place, because on the same nights of both of those shoots, we'll be going live. So both of those shoots are going to be October 14th and October 28th. That's when the 2 night investigations are taking place, and both in different locations. And hopefully, at some point in between filming, we're going to be able to turn the cameras off and turn our phones on and go live while on location. And of course, both of those live feeds are going to be in Cryptovania, the Facebook group Cryptovania. And hopefully Tommy Cooper or Jason Frost there at Cryptovania are going to come along and chat online with us and maybe ask us a few questions. So that'll be another exclusive of the new documentary. So we thought we'd just kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, as the old saying goes, and do that on the same night. So October 14th, October 28th, obviously we'll be filming from early on until probably very late. But I'm gathering we're going to maybe try and squeeze that in at some point, and then probably a accurate time announcement will be announced at a later stage.
Yeah, we'll work that out,
Yeah, but of course you can keep an eye on our group, which is simply called Bigfoot, and you will be able to see what is exactly going to be happening on those 2 dates. But of course that's on Facebook, our Facebook group Bigfoot, and look out for those announcements, because you will not want to miss those. They're going to be the highlight of the entire thing, and I think for to do that while we're actually out on the night investigations is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, so looking forward. It'd be would it be one of a kind? You know what I mean? I've not seen it anywhere else. It's on. I've seen live feeds, but not during filming the documentary. It's.
Yeah, well, we did do a few earlier on during filming, but I mean to do it when we're actually out on a night investigation, is going to be totally awesome. Yeah,
right.
And hopefully all the action happens when we're filming the documentary, to be honest. But yeah, if it happens when we're in the live feed, well, yeah, what can we do?
You could only be so lucky. That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be. What can you tell us about the work that went into creating the suit for the documentary?
A lot of work. Yeah. Jim Bradley is, mostly responsible for that.
It's the suit is a full military ghillie suit, top of the range spec. I think they're about $400 or $500 to buy. I didn't pay that for it. It was given to me for free It's when we noticed right off the bat it was the wrong color. So basically, I got 4 aerosol cans of black matte paint. Chris got the other stuff online, the features that we see on the documentary, the mask, the feet, and the gloves and stuff like that.
The main thing we had to create was the eyes, so
yes,
it
indeed.
was quite a bit of work went into that.
That was a bit of genius by Chris.
Yeah.
The red glowing eyes, they look well in the trailer if anyone looks at it. But a lot of work went into it, and it looks really well on camera, especially during the daylight scenes, and it looks really, really good.
Yeah, we did actually first, consider CGI for the recreations, but I'm not sure whether some of you guys are big movie buffs. Some of the top movies out in recent years have sort of moved away from CGI now, and a lot are using practical effects. Yeah. And I always liked the practical effect end of movies. I mind watching the behind the scenes of movies back in the 80s. Used to be on TV every time a big movie came out, and it showed you them building these massive sets and building these real creatures, where you could actually touch. So I just thought that would look far better. So Jim, he obviously stepped in and done all that. And
yeah, I lost a couple of pounds doing that as well. The sweat and the heat, bruises, cuts, major thorns. I still have thorns. I can't get them out. But it was all worth it. It turned out fantastic. We're very happy with the results that came about. So I hope that answers your question, Vic.
It does. Yeah, it's all too easy to overlook things like that. It's not nearly as easy to make a documentary like this as it might seem. Chris, considering all the eyewitnesses who contact you to share their sightings with you, do you play the role of counselor often or just collect their stories?
Well, I haven't actually personally collected any stories myself, Vic, in the past, but others have. I was just sort of thrown into the deep end. I talked a little bit on it last week, but I was sort of thrown into the deep end. I was sort of left to gather all these up and work them out. So that's sort of what happened to me. I sort of gathered all these reports up and said, right, well, I got to go out and investigate these and see if indeed these witnesses were telling the truth. There is a possibility they were telling the truth. I'm not ever suggesting, by the way, that nobody wasn't telling the truth, but of course, as an investigator, you got to go out there and tally that up and add up the evidence and look for yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you've got to be thorough. Jim, for all the naysayers who are resolute in their unwillingness to accept the fact that you do have Sasquatch there in Ireland, what would you say to them?
I'd say go out and have a look. Have a look on YouTube. Have a look on the internet. Check it out. Just do a little bit of research like I did. That's exactly how I came into the hobby, as you say. But yeah, definitely go into it and have a look. A lot of people, armchair people like myself, when I started off, naysayers were just saying, that's. But again, we have people. It's people here that Ireland is different. People don't want to come forward, tell their stories. They're more personal. They don't want to be ridiculed. So they keep them to themselves. So that's basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring this documentary forward. And if it can bring people forward to us, report their stories to us if they can. But it's difficult to try and get people to tell their story.
And of course, if people did need counselling, on a matter, we would be prepared to help. Of course, we would, yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, as I said, previous sightings and stuff have been gathered by other research organisations, so we weren't actually directly involved in talking to those witnesses. But of course, if anybody ever wants to report a sighting to ourselves, they're quite welcome to do so. And of course, we will give them as much help and support as they need. And they shouldn't be afraid to come forward. They don't have to put their name out there. Their name won't be plastered all over the internet or over Facebook or whatever. But, their name will be kept confidential, and their sighting will be kept confidential. And if they want to let us make that report and put the report out and just put their name as Mr. X or Mrs. X, fair enough. But of course, everything is confidential and private.
Well, it sounds to me like you two are doing things the right way. If an eyewitness does reach out to you, I've got no doubts that they're going to be in great hands. But having said that, I want to thank you so much for coming back on and sharing all this info with us. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Vic.
Thank you very much.
Once again, and thank you so much for having us back.
Yeah, for spreading the word. Thank you very much, Vic, indeed. It's been an honour and a privilege. As I said, I listen to your shows all the time, and it's strange to listen to your own voice on your show, but I suppose you get used to it. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, that can be something that you never do get used to, but having said that, thanks again so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Have a great night.
That's it for another episode of Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio with Vic Cundiff. If you've had a Sasquatch encounter and would like to be a guest on the show, please go to BigfootEyewitness.com and submit a report. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.